Welcome to the Pitchwerks podcast. I'm Scot MacTaggart. Over the last 20 years, I've been a sales rep, a marketer, a manager, an executive, a consultant, and an advisor. This show is designed to give you access to my list of contacts so that you can learn more about how to present your ideas at work and succeed in your career.
Startups and salespeople, marketers and managers from the Epicast Network in Pittsburgh. It's the Pitchwerks Podcast.
Hey everybody, it's Scott. It's Wednesday and it's a Pitchwerks podcast. I can't tell you how much I appreciate having you tune in each week. This week we got a big show. Catherine Mott is here. Blue Tree Allied Angels, literally like the first name in angel investment in Western Pennsylvania. She is the founder, and sitting across from me, if you would believe that, we're going to talk about a lot of things related to investment, angel investment, what you should be doing, what you're probably going to do, even though you shouldn't. It's all going to turn out okay, I promise. Before we jump into the interview, I'm going to ask you to rate this fine program in iTunes. That would be pretty easy to do. If you've got that, just jump in, star rating. Hey, Scott, this is what I think about this thing you work on. That helps other people to find the show, and it is literally the only request I make. Let's talk to Catherine. Let's get started on this. I guarantee you we are not going to get through every one of the possible things on this list of just great bullet points, but we're gonna do our level best. Let's find out what happens. Ladies and gentlemen, get out your notepads. I am joined in the studio by Catherine Mott, Blue Tree Allied Angels president. President? Is that what we're saying?
I just say founder.
Founder is good too. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I like that title better. I prefer founder.
Thank you.
How are you this evening?
I'm well. How are you tonight?
I'm really happy that you're here. And I got to tell you, the level of enthusiasm that you've already brought into the studio makes me even happier.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here as well.
Well, I know a lot of people are going to want to hear what you have to say. There are so many different aspects of starting a company that people need to learn. They have to have a product. They have to know what legal organization for their company looks like. They have to know how they're going to go to market. They have to know, so many different things. I think they kind of run out of gas a lot of times in terms of understanding what an angel fund is, what they do, what they're looking for, what's the right way to present yourself. And I'm not going to pretend we're going to get to all of that in 30 minutes, but I think we've got a couple things we can uncover if you don't mind.
I'm looking forward to it because this is what I do and what I'm very passionate about and have been doing for 15 years.
You said to me that you don't take a salary.
No.
That's amazing to me.
No, I don't.
I think that blew up everything I planned on saying to you first.
Well, it doesn't mean I don't get paid for it because I get, I invest as well. So
I hear you, but I mean, that's a big statement, right? I mean, there's a difference between what a lot of us think of in terms of how the world works and how it actually works in a lot of cases. So has it always been that way, or did you make a change along the way?
No, it's always been that way. So when we started Blue Tree Allied Angels, that was October 2003. There were roughly about 100 professionally managed angel groups in the United States.
Wow.
Today, there's over 600.
Yeah.
So that's just the United States alone. There's, 300 or 500 in Europe. It's all over Southeast Asia, even Africa. I mean, the concept of people aggregating their knowledge and aggregating their money to invest in startup companies is just taken off all over the world. And quite honestly, it has always, we are perplexed. The industry is perplexed, at least here in the United States, because it's really hard. It's like when you have a small fund and you take a management fee, about the most you can do is pay for your overhead.
Right.
It's not going to give you a salary. It allows you to maybe hire an office person. And unless there is some kind of, sometimes some of the groups have government support. They certainly do in Europe and Africa.
Right.
So it allows them to, hire professional managers. They'll have 3 or 4 people. And as a matter of fact, that's how Ohio got their angel group started. They had a program there called the Third Frontier. And they basically said, we'll give you $200,000 a year to pay for a staff and office and whatever, and we'll match all your funds that you raise in a little fund. And so they got angels to commit to a fund, and they matched the dollars. And the only thing, the only The only thing they were required to do was to make sure they invested in Ohio.
That makes perfect sense, though.
Yeah.
Just to make sure everyone from beginner to advanced is following the conversation.
Okay.
So when we talk about angel investment, we are talking about an individual, and in your case, a group of individuals. That's your allied angels. This is an angel group which collaborates for the purposes of more than just a quick buck, hard line, I don't care what it is kind of an approach. Angel carries a connotation of you're a little bit more patient. Is that a fair statement?
It is definitely patient capital. I mean, the average tech company is held about 5 years before you see an exit, and if it's life sciences, you're looking at holding that company 10 to 15 years, possibly. So it is very patient capital. And one of the market drivers for becoming a member of an angel group is that you need to create a portfolio of companies, because if you're going to be successful in this asset class, you're acting just like a venture capitalist. So that means you have to have a portfolio of companies, because if you have a portfolio of companies of 18 to 25, 10 of them are going to go bankrupt.
Right.
So you're relying on the rest of your portfolio to carry the return on investment.
It's diversification, just like they teach you when you first get your 401k orientation package.
And we tell people that. It's amazing. We tell people that why not apply all the same principles that you apply to your public stock portfolio to your private stock portfolio?
Makes perfect sense. But I'm not telling you anything you don't know when I say people get frustrated, especially in a market like Pittsburgh that doesn't have a Silicon Valley sort of a image or way of doing business, right? And I think you and I could actually help some of them reduce the friction of their lives by dispelling some of the things maybe they don't understand and maybe give some helpful pointers, right? The first thing you said to me that raised my eyebrows when we did our phone call to sort of figure out how do we take this and make it manageable was a lot of people apply to the wrong fund. They don't even know what a fund is investing in.
Yeah. So yes and no to that answer. First of all, in our city, there really is a dearth of capital. So we don't have lots of capital like Silicon Valley or Boston.
Right.
So we're a part of that flyover territory. So it's really hard for any funder, to fund everything.
Yeah.
It's just impossible. I mean, even if all the deals were like the best, hottest deals you can imagine, you still don't have enough capital. But, yes, you need to, as an entrepreneur, you really should do your homework about, number one, what does that investor or investor group or that venture fund, what do they typically invest in?
Yeah.
Most of us on our website will tell you exactly what we're looking for, what our criteria is. Pre-money valuations under $5 million.
Right.
We expect there to be IP and, barriers to entry. Some kind of proof of concept, things like that. So you can go to there and you go to our website and see exactly what we're looking for.
Literal checkboxes.
Little checkboxes. Check. So, but on the other hand, I will tell you it's a great learning experience for entrepreneurs to go through the process, particularly a professional process. They will come out the other side much, much better. And we see this all the time. And I'll give you a good example. A company we looked at, they were they pitched us. Portfolio of IP was really phenomenal. And we pushed them through to due diligence, and we got into diligence, and we were looking and we're saying, well, they don't have any employment agreements. They don't have any NDAs. They didn't have any of their employees sign NDAs. They were an S corp. Well, we can't invest in an S corp. No investor's going to invest in an S corp. So we had to get them to, to file in Delaware as a C corp. So we helped them with, the process. We pushed back on their assumptions in their financial plan. And it's not that that any investor expects them to have all the answers, because they won't and they can't.
No, of course not, especially when it's a small team.
Right. But we want to get the sense that they know their industry and they know their customers. And so going through that process, even if you go through that with another group and then and you come to, you try another investor.
Yeah.
You're ready. You are so ready.
Yeah, we had Jim Gibbs come through here for our very first episode from Meter Feeder, and he said, even if you don't think you'll ever go through Y Combinator, you should fill out their application because it will make your company better.
Better, right.
And you're talking about the same exact thing. Like, at least it will help you to align your current reality with what, because I can't imagine anything you're doing is that outlandish or different compared to other people, right? Like, this is what a typical angel group or a typical angel investor is going to be looking for. So you said pre-money valuation under $5 million. You're not looking for S corps. I think that's a safe assumption we could draw from that. I'm going to ask you something weird, and I think it's something you're going to agree with me on. Would it be easier if there were more competitors in Western Pennsylvania of groups because you'd have to do less educating? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
I'm jealous of, because here's what happens in Ohio. Because they had this, the state cultivated these angel groups. They syndicate. So think about this, you're an angel, you're an entrepreneur. The average angel group investment is around $300,000.
Okay.
So, but you typically in your first seed round need about $1 million to $1.5 million.
Right.
In Ohio, if one angel group invests, they all invest and they sew up the round. You know, so I mean, having multiple sources of capital is not only about competition, but it's about cooperation and being.
I see it from a sales perspective. That's where I grew up, right? Like all of this other stuff I learned late, right? The sales piece is what I grew up with. And everyone thinks that when you have that better mousetrap, that the world beats a path to your door. I'm here to tell you, A, that's not true. And B, you spend a lot of time on education. You come and you have to do repetitive meetings with people because they're used to the old dynamic. Or worse, they're used to the movie dynamic. They're used to what they saw on TV. You spend, if you are the only one standing in a market, you are like the college that they get their degree from. And there's no pay for that. You can't ask them for the money that it took to educate them on, in your case, angel investment. In my case, all these technology products.
One of the things we do at Blue Tree is we open up our screening committee meetings. They're a monthly meeting where 4 or 5 companies are in front of us and they're pitching. And we have our committee scoring and we invite guests to come in and listen, because what they'll see is they'll see good pitches. They'll see bad pitches. They'll see, they'll hear the questions. They'll hear the discussion after the group leaves about the concerns and about what else we need to look into before we make a decision. So they get so much out of that. We actually sometimes have standing room only. Yeah. It's become a standard thing for us. And so we welcome that opportunity to educate entrepreneurs in our community, because it's only going to make them better for it on the other side.
Well, and I would assume that a lot of people don't know that. And I would assume that they would expect a lower level of transparency. Money makes people nervous. I think we can agree on this. We were raised, no matter what generation, you were raised to treat money differently than the rest of your life. And that means you assume that it's powerful. You assume that money is secretive. You assume that money is to be fought over, right? Like there's a lot of these weird cultural norms and mores that have formed around just, you don't talk about your salary,
right.
At a very early age, money is like a different thing. And I think you end up with entrepreneurs a lot of times that are product people that maybe didn't even get personal finance education, expecting you to be like, okay, now close the door, light the cigars, let's do this. Right?
But there's some investors that are like that, though.
Well, we didn't mean to cast aspersions on them by any means. But truthfully, I mean, you know that there's an expectation to a certain degree that people are going to write the narrative, whether it's actually a truthful narrative. Same as like I was saying before, they saw it on TV, so this must be how it works.
Oh, they see it on Shark Tank and think everything is like Shark Tank.
Oh, you hate Shark Tank too?
I don't hate Shark Tank. You know what? The reason I don't...
You hear Buzzy laughing?
Yeah, I heard Buzzy laughing.
This is a long-running conversation.
Well, I really, I think there's a lot to be learned from Shark Tank. Even though Kevin is absolutely rude, there's a lot to learn there. Mm-hmm. And I have to tell you, in our angel group, we are so well behaved. We are so polite, but not every angel group is like that. So when someone comes in to pitch, we're very kind and we say thank you and we appreciate you coming in. In a lot of organizations, so we're just so you know, is that you could be treated very rudely and you could be in front of someone who just wants to exercise their ego and say, look how much I know to the rest of the group.
This is actually what I hate about Shark Tank. And it has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with colleges. Mm-hmm. Let me make that clearer than it seems at the outset.
I'm trying to link it to colleges
I'm
here.
going to get you there. I'm going to bring it home, right? But a story's not a story without a little bit of suspense. I get asked to come into these entrepreneurship programs, and a lot of them are set up in sort of that Shark Tank. There's a panel full of judges kind of, they like it. They like it because they think the students recognize the environment. But the poison part is the people that they bring into the judges box don't realize they're not on TV, right? And they don't realize that just because you can make up some half-baked theory on why this business won't work does not, in fact, imbue you with data, right? Like the Shark Tank folks are on TV. Everyone knows that it's entertainment first, right? Mm-hmm. But I'm afraid it got into the drinking water.
Probably so. But I love the stories, Scott.
Wait a
minute. I love the success stories they passed on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Hello Fresh is a good one. That they passed on and said, no way people are going to have, food delivered to their house and just cook it.
That's the craziest thing ever. Yeah. But again, it's entertainment and I get that. What I don't want is someone who is just taking an entrepreneurship class because it's a requirement to be turned off on it by
I agree.
Someone who is of questionable qualifications telling them that their business is dumb.
Yeah, but welcome to the world of finance, because I will tell you, I'm serious. I mean, there are
Don't make me laugh when I'm drinking, it's rude.
But even amongst the VCs, so if you look at who become members of the organization of a venture capital firm, sometimes, they get started because they were people who cashed out, built a business, made a lot of money and decided, well, I'm going to start investing in startups. Like Andreessen Horowitz is a good example of that. But who do they hire? They end up hiring people, MBAs that have never run a business before. And so when they sit across from them or they sit on their boards, they're still the MBAs with their textbook. They haven't been in the real world of building a company. And so they don't necessarily add the best advice when they're working with that company or on their board. Now, what I will say is because they have money, they have great connections. They can find them good mentors. They can find them, great customers, biz dev people, things like that, connect them with major corporations. But at the end of the day, I believe that former operators who've built and sold companies and have grown companies and have been through, all the ups and downs, because it's like a roller coaster. It doesn't scale like a perfect J curve, is that,
we tell people it will.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly right. And we expect it on the other side.
We've convinced our husbands and wives of it.
And we as investors expect it too.
Honey, there's no risk.
But, in the real world, I mean, it's managing and navigating the obstacles. That's what makes you successful.
I want to add on to your point. And I have sat in on a couple like deal flow type, hey, we're having an open, it's like open mic night.
Yeah,
right?
open mic night. Yeah.
And I'm not proud of this, but only by claiming it and owning it can I expect other people to improve their behavior, right? And it is this. If you have not been an operator, it is very easy to dehumanize the people at open mic night because you have a short fuse for listening to the same pitches over and over and over and the same assumptions over and over and over, right? Until you understand how agonizing it is to stand on that spot, especially if you've been doing it for a year already, right? And you're planning on doing it for another year before you actually get your big break where someone else is making the donuts. I started dehumanizing people that were pitching within 4 hours. Like, I was like, this person didn't do their homework. What a jackass, right? And I'm like starting to get angry that this 8 minutes that I spent on my butt was wasted, as if I was digging ditches, right? Now, imagine if I'd never been an operator, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine, and I kind of, I'm not saying it's a silver bullet, but I know you've seen it.
I've seen it, and you know what? My favorite expression that I like to quickly respond to is when someone says that's not a winner. I said, if you can pick the winners, how I respond is, if you can pick the winners, Kleiner Perkins is going to pay you whatever you want.
Right.
Or just go to Bessemer Ventures and look at the number of companies that they say the ones we missed. They missed Airbnb.
I love that page.
Airbnb.
Yes.
They missed Facebook. They missed, list the number of companies that they missed.
And it keeps them down to earth.
Right. And I agree with you. On the other side is a human.
Yeah.
And someone who's trying, and you may be sitting there in the audience. Are you trying?
That's what I'm saying. 8 minutes on your butt. How much did you really give up here?
Yeah.
Right. You were going to be here all day, no matter how good or bad they were.
Exactly.
And frankly, to your point, we don't know. We really don't know. I didn't understand Twitter for the first 2 years.
But it takes, the best I tell people that we can do is mitigate our risk. That's the best we can do is to make sure that we're blocking and tackling. And if they have the things in place that protects the company, that helps the company scale, that helps the company find customers, that helps the company, do the things that it needs to do to be a viable entity and become, for us, an acquisition target so that we in turn get paid.
Right. Yeah. Because you don't actually get anything on your investment until money changes hands again.
Exactly.
Right. So what are you investing in now?
Wow. Mostly tech related companies. We've our portfolio is balanced 40% tech, 40% life sciences, and I call it 20% other. And the other are things like consumer goods. We have a gluten-free beer company, RX.
I know. Their sticker is in the next room. They've been through this very studio.
And, and we saw the unique opportunity there. So that's our other category.
You didn't even say anything when I walked you past the big RX sticker.
I don't know how I missed it.
That's Buzzy's sticker.
I don't know how I missed it, because as soon as I went to Arsenal last weekend I was in Arsenal's. And they had RX beer in there. I didn't miss it. And that was a little tiny sign.
Well, Buzzy does have a lot of beer stickers. That's true. So one of the things, you handed me a due diligence checklist, right? Mm-hmm. This is something that I get the feeling like a lot of people show up, they put on their Guy Kawasaki 10-slide deck presentation, and then you find 30. Out. Yeah, the 10, 20, 30, the whole thing. Yeah. And then you get in and you say, and I'm just looking at this checklist here. I know somebody has been stopped or at least slowed by every single one of these, right? Is there any open litigation? Can you actually provide financial information with audited statements? Intellectual property, right? If I heard you correctly, this is all coming after pitch, after you express some interest, after. So in order to take somebody to the next level, you're skipping a due diligence at the outset. Is that fair?
So at the outset, we're doing some high level diligence. We're trying to understand the market a bit.
Yeah.
Because think about this. We probably look at anywhere from 600 to 1,000 applications a year.
Okay.
So but we can only invest in 6 companies a year.
And how many angels are in the group?
78.
Okay.
So when you think about how we get that down to eventually investing in 6, right? So we start high level at, is this a crowded space? What do we know about the competition? What's happening in Boston and in Cincinnati and other parts of the country that we can understand and see if this company has, something really unique and can build something that, to become a leader in the market, right? knowing that there's very little competition out there.
Right.
There's always some competition. Then after they get through the screening, so we they get selected, they go through screening. This is when we engage in that 4-page due diligence checklist.
There's a lot on here.
Well, that comes from the National Venture Capital Association.
Okay.
So that's a best practice in the industry. And we give that to them, and we basically say all that applies is what we need to see. And then typically what they do is they create a Dropbox, or we work on something, where there's it's password protected and we can look at all the documents. But what I mentioned before, you wouldn't believe how many times after they've been through diligence with us, they now have all of those things put in place.
Right.
Where they might not have had it at the very beginning.
If I'm right, this was on your website. Is that correct?
It could be.
I think you may have had this on your website, or at least did at one point.
We have a lot of tools for entrepreneurs, so I wouldn't be surprised if if it's not there. If it's already there.
Well, if it's all right, I'd like to take a digital copy and maybe put it on the show page for your appearance.
My pleasure.
And if it helps you just save one headache, I think it's a win.
Well, the other thing I would like to mention about diligence is a lot of times we can get through, it'll take weeks, it could take months.
Right.
And because we're trying to help fix things at the same time.
The expectation is not that it's perfect.
Right. But it's also, we could get on the other side of that and say, we're not moving forward with an investment.
Right.
There's no guarantee because you've gone through diligence that means it's going to fly. Now, with investors, you mentioned this at the very beginning, is even though we will have a lot of the information and very, very few of our investors will invest without the diligence, but it's still at the end of the day, it becomes an emotional decision.
Right.
Buying is always about emotions.
Yes.
In their head, they feel better about the fact that we've researched this to see that there's no major issues.
Yeah, of course.
But at the end of the day, they're investing in the team and how the team presented. And, so it's great. We have this here, but
diligence is an insurance policy.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a great way of explaining it. I like that. I'm going to use that in the future.
No, because what you're saying resonates with me. Mm-hmm. I like teams. Mm-hmm. It's how I choose clients. It's how I do everything. Like, if you're the person who's going to freak out, I need to get distance between us because I can freak out just fine on my own. Right.
And you try to identify that when you're performing diligence as well. You're with them 3 or 4 times within a couple of weeks, and you're trying to get a sense of how the team works together and what happens when things go wrong. That is the hardest thing to judge. From day one. You can spend a lot of time. You don't really know people until you're with them 6 months, 10 months later. Today I was having lunch with an attorney friend, and we were talking about the companies that went wrong, what went sideways. Mm-hmm. And it's never the technology. It's for us, what we've identified so far from our experience, it's been a dysfunctional team or a dysfunctional board. I have seen a dysfunctional board destroy a good company as well. So if you read anything I write for Smart Business Magazine, you'll see this. I'm very passionate about having the right people, choosing the right leader, and also having a really good functional board, a supportive board. It's very functional. We can do a lot of work on the team and identify who they are. And now we're creating this new board around them, right? That we're investing in them. We're asking for a board seat. Someone else is in the round might be getting a board seat, and then they get an independent. And this group of people have never worked together before. Right. Right. So
that's the part that makes me nervous. Is when you take something that was one way and you gamble on something you don't know yet. What do you think makes the type of CEO, like, for example, I know I'm not a CEO. Mm-hmm. And you have to be very shrewd and honest with yourself about that, right? Like, a CEO needs to be more that basically, like, all of this has happened. It will happen again, right? That's what I think. And I know I don't have that. So I know I'm not the CEO. What do you think? So
what we have seen, and so I'll speak from our experience of the successful companies, is successful CEOs have I think you were right. There's a Zen quality of calmness, but most of all, they are team builders. And think about a good coach and how that good coach works with his or her team.
Okay.
Knows how to, work with their team, knows their weaknesses and strengths, make sure they, are helping and compensating for that. Listening to your team, allowing your team to do what they need to do. We like to see a CEO that surrounds herself or himself with very strong players. Surround themselves with A players. If they surround themselves with people that are afraid to speak up or have, really strong skill set and they feel like they're less than, then, someone who is a yes person is not necessarily the best team player, right?
Right.
Because
you're
want
not getting
them
the contribution.
Right. You need people around you to say, we shouldn't do that. And here's why.
Okay.
And they should feel comfortable enough to speak up with the CEO to explain it. Because you don't have time when you're a small company. You're burning cash.
Right.
And if you've made, you don't have time when you make mistakes. The beauty of being small, you can correct them quickly. But if you continue to go down the path of making the same mistake and not correct it,
yeah,
and you're burning cash, and then when it comes time to raise the next round, and you didn't accomplish significant, validation points,
especially now that you're on record,
yeah.
right? You said what you thought you were going to accomplish. Like you can kind of fake that on the first check because you can go, oh yeah, no, totally, we did the stuff we thought we were going to do. And then the second one comes around and like, well, can't help but notice there, Catherine, that I've got your permanent record right here. And it says here that within 1 year, you were going to achieve this revenue and you're half of that.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, we expect that. Mm-hmm. We, twice as much, twice as long. We totally expect that, but you need to be honest about it and open about it and correct it quickly. And that's what it said. The strongest CEOs know how to navigate obstacles. They know how to work with their people and get the best out of their people. And it's just managing your team for the best outcomes. And that's what we try to look for, is that kind of team. I won't speak of the company's name, but I know there was a company that had trouble finding a CEO because the founder had I'd say a big personality is the way, the way to manage it. And different people tried to become the CEO of this company and they couldn't, it just didn't work out. The right person came along and was able to work with this individual and took it to a profitable exit. And, so hired lots of employees and is done very, very well. So it's the right person who can manage themselves with the various personalities in the room.
Along that line, do you ever take into consideration if somebody has to change staff a lot before they come see you?
This will happen.
There's a chicken and the egg here,
no,
right?
Trust me, I've seen this, where everybody's, let's build this company. They're all holding hands, singing Kumbaya.
Yes.
We're going to do this. And then you find out, wait a minute, you mean it's this much work? Oh, wait a minute. I have a
job offer.
Yeah, I have a job offer and it's twice as much as what I'm making here. And it has healthcare in it, whatever.
And I don't have to deal with a tyrannical personality or whatever else.
Right. It can happen and it will happen. And
do you ever see that as a negative? And I want to specifically hone in on if a CEO has removed members of their team, let's say just above average number of times, right? Is that something you take into consideration? Is that a way you look at things?
I think you have to look at it within the context of, how those things occurred.
Right.
Those are tough decisions, but the quicker you nip them in the bud, the better it is for your company. Again, you can't afford to burn. And
I think a lot of people are afraid of looking like a failure,
especially
like first-time founder, first-time CEO. They say, well, I don't want to look bad by firing 30% of my team here. But if I'm hearing you right, as long as it's not some weird emotional decision, it's you nipping it in the bud.
Right.
It's the right move, and you won't lose points for it.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I could talk to you all day. You know that, right?
Anytime.
Well,
Anytime.
I want to make sure we send people to your website. Let's start there because there's a lot of good resources there.
Yeah, bluetreealliedangels.com.
There you go. All one word, no hyphens, no.
Yep.
Okay. bluetreealliedangels.com. And we will get you back in here.
All right.
There's too much to talk about.
I'd love it.
I looked at the clock. I was like, man, we did a pretty good job. I don't know that we got through everything that we wanted to get through, but
we should bring in one of my CEOs and chat about
that would be a great
what
idea.
it's like to work with together on helping a company be successful.
We can do that. Absolutely.
Okay. I would love it.
Until next time.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, that's the end of the show. Thanks, as always. We appreciate having you tune in. Thank you to Catherine and everyone at Blue Tree Allied Angels. This was a big show for us. It's just very informative, and I'm glad that she was able to make time for our humble little program. If you're not already subscribed, please do me the favor of subscribing in your podcast app. That makes it so that every Wednesday morning, these golden pipes will grace your phone, and you'll get it a few hours before everybody else does, which sounds like a pretty good deal to me. Take care of yourselves in the meantime. We'll catch you next week.
The Pitchwerks podcast comes to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a production of the Epicast Network and MacTaggart, LLC. Engineering and production by Buzzy Torek and Nick Miller. For more information, show feedback, and ad sales, visit pitchwerks.com, pitchwerks.com. On social media, find and follow the show on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and Instagram using that same brand name, pitchwerks.